Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Angela Rose, and I am the founder of PAVE, Promoting Awareness, Victim Empowerment. And we are so grateful that you are here to spend a little bit of time with us here on Valentine's Day. So what I wanted to do, just a couple of quick housekeeping measures. We are going to have time for Q&A at the end, and you can use that in the chat down below. Couple things about Zoom. I know probably a lot of us are zoomed out by now, but what you can do is if you want to see all the speakers, there's a gallery view. So at the top right-hand corner on your screen, you can click the view button and then you can get a gallery of all the speakers. Or if you just want to have a big screen of the speaker that's speaking at the time, you can just click the speaker tab right there. So just a little bit of, creating the safe space here today. Undoubtedly, there's going to be people here with us today who've experienced some type of domestic violence, sexual trauma, some type of trauma in your life. And so we always like to start by saying that this is a safe space and there are a lot of resources out there for you. So if you have any type of trigger, you can always go to survivors.org. We also know of the hotline, the National Sexual Assault Hotline. That's also on survivors.org. There's just so many resources to let you know that you, of course, are never alone. And so we also want to thank our corporate partner, which is Color Street, for making this happen today. So thank you to Color Street for making this event happen. And of course, thank you to our panelists. We are so excited for this conversation today. We have some incredible speakers, all PAVE ambassadors. And so I'd like to start by introducing them. So all three of these empowering speakers today are survivors of sexual abuse. And so we're going to hear how they have manifested healthy relationships in their lives after trauma. And this actually came from all of you. This is a topic that was requested by some of our PAVE supporters, constituents. There's a lot of people that really wanted this conversation to happen. So we will be recording. And if there's any questions that you have, leave them at the end and you can drop them in the chat. So thank you all again. My name is Angela Rose. Any support you need, survivors.org, and you can learn more about PAVE's work at shatteringthesilence.org. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our panelists here. So I'm just going to read a little bit about each one, and then they're going to go ahead and introduce themselves. So our first speaker that we have is Antuan Magic Raimone. He just came out with a brand new book. So he's an author, he's a TEDx speaker, and he's also a cast member of Hamilton, among many other Broadway shows. So thank you for being here, Antuan. We also have Erin Merryn. She is an author. She is the creator of Erin's Law, and she also was Glamour Magazine Woman of the Year. So thank you for being here, Erin. And Shannon Bobo. She is a comedian and an actress, and I've known all three of you for quite some time, so I'm beyond grateful that you are all here to be with us today. So thank you so much. So Antuan, if you want to start giving us a little bit about yourself as a person, that would be great.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, everyone watching and currently live and those who'll be watching the replay. So I grew up in a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri. I have lived in New York City for 16 years. I've been working professionally as a performer for 25 years, and I have been a public speaker for the past 10 years. So I'm just very excited to be here. As you can see behind me, my lovely backdrop, Soldier of Love. This is like my mission and what will soon be my company. And the purpose of that is to empower each person that I meet to live a whole life. And for me, a whole life is a life where fear is not debilitating, where mistakes can exist, and where vulnerability is not a weakness. So happy to be here.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here, Antuan. I really appreciate it. And now we have Erin. Can you give us a little intro on yourself, Erin?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Angela. And hello to all of you that are joining and those of you who are watching later. My journey began when I was a senior in high school, when I decided to put a face and voice on a silent epidemic. So 18 years ago. That was when I published my childhood diary into a book, detailing my own abuse and, wanting to give other people the courage to break their silence and find their voice. And it led me on this journey to continue to put a face and voice on this and speak out and eventually go after Erin's Law, which requires that we teach kids personal body safety education in school. And the reason I went after that is because as a kid, I was threatened by two different individuals that I knew who, like many children that are abused, told to keep it a secret. No one will believe you. And so when kids are not being taught this by mom and dad, and they're only being taught in school, stranger danger, when 90% of the time it is someone they know and trust, I decided to make it my mission that we require it in kindergarten to 12th grade every year, giving kids the voice on how to report abuse. And I've been at this for 12 years now, and it is now passed in almost 40 states. And my goal is all 50. And after that, I'm going to take it international.
Oh, that's so inspirational. Thank you, Erin. Thank you so much for being here. And Shannon, tell us about yourself.
A little bit about myself. I am a comedian and actress here in Hollywood. I've been here since 2002, so almost 20 years, where I've been working in casting, so helping other actors book work as well. It's been a passion of mine to help as many people as possible, and especially PAVE has always been a part of my life. I met Angela back in college, University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I had her on my show called Madison This Week. And at the end of the show, I said, I'm a survivor too. And then that began my journey of really coming out and really being a voice, especially in the African-American community. It's just so silenced and quieted. And it's like, Erin, it's so funny. I'm piggybacking off of what you're saying. It was someone I knew, and it was a family member. So just that's a little bit about myself and why I'm here. I work in casting, and I'm also produce a show on Fox Soul called Comedy Parlor Quarantine Edition that you could check out. But that's just, I'll pass it back to Angela.
Well, thank you all so much. Such powerful speakers and powerful journeys. So thank you all so much for being here and for sharing a little bit about yourself. So the first question that I have is, what does a healthy relationship mean to you? Antuan, if you want to start.
For me, it's being able to be in a space for yourself where you feel you're most vulnerable, and your partner allows for you to be in that place. They offer you the comfort that you need while you're in that space, not necessarily the comfort that they might need. And then also being able to reciprocate that. And that is a very scary thing when you are used to, as I was, when you're used to being so reserved out of fear that someone will manipulate or misuse that vulnerability within you.
Powerful answer. Thank you. Shannon?
For me, a healthy relationship looks like trust and exactly what Antuan said, like being able to be vulnerable with someone and being able to reciprocate it and being able to just feel safe. I think that's the most important thing, is to feel safe and to know that they always have your back no matter what.
I love that. Erin, do you have anything to add?
I'm kind of piggybacking off of what Shanna said. My number one thing is trust, especially when you've been betrayed by someone you know. Trust is going to be an extremely difficult thing. And I think that's something that's very powerful in, building a relationship, is someone that you can trust in and feel safe with.
I love that. And, just for me personally, being in a healthy relationship too, it's that vulnerability, as all of you mentioned. It can be so hard for survivors of trauma to really let our guard down after we've, kind of put these, peeling back those onion layers to get back to our authentic, true self can be very difficult. So I'm going to want to hear at the end kind of how you got there. So let's move on to the next question, which I think is an interesting one that Antuan had mentioned, is what was your biggest fear in being in a healthy relationship? Antuan, if you want to kick us off.
So I thought a lot about this question, and I don't know that I had a pre-existing fear going into relationships. It was once I found myself in a relationship, my fear was that by me kind of being my most vulnerable self, that it would be off-putting to the other person, that they wouldn't hold it. Because there had been so many times where I had tried to be vulnerable with either in romantic relationships or familial relationships, and they weren't held in a way that I needed them to be held. And so I just didn't know that that was possible. I had some people that did that for me, but not enough people for me to feel secure that, oh, people will hold what this is for you when you show it to them. And so that's kind of been an ongoing fear for mine that I'm still working through, even in my current relationship.
Thank you for that. Shannon, what was your biggest fear?
Totally the imposter syndrome, like not believing that I deserved love and they wouldn't love me back. And of course, that they would leave.
Erin, what was your biggest fear?
My biggest fear would have been just, feeling like I'm coming into this relationship with so much baggage that it might scare somebody off. And especially, someone that's unfamiliar with trauma and what it does to you. And so that was, one of my greatest fears is, it wouldn't be like maybe other relationships that person had been in, and just the fear of, the guilt of I'm bringing all this to the table. Are they going to accept me, want to be with me, not feeling worthy type thing?
And thank you for that. That leads us to our next question, actually. So did you have issues with kind of worthiness and deservability? And I would think a lot of us would say yes to that. And so the second part of that question is, how did you overcome it? Antuan?
Yes, I absolutely had deficiencies in worthiness. And for me, how that played out was when men would tell me they loved me or they cared about me or cared for me, the dialogue in my mind was, why are you saying this and what do you want when you say it? I couldn't accept it at face value. And I just thought, okay, this is a tactic of manipulation, and which is just so it's sad. It's genuinely sad, but that is how I thought. And so for me, therapy really helped me create new conversations for myself around that. And it came from me understanding, most importantly, that I know that I am worthy and that I am the first line of defense for the love that I need in my life. And anyone else is a support of that. They are not the foundation for that. I'm the foundation for that.
That is so beautiful. Thank you. Shannon, did you have issues of worthiness and deservability? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a work in progress. It's still, I wake up next to my husband thinking, oh, you're still here. But one day I was just done. One day, the last man I dated before my husband, I was like, you know what? I am done. I played second fiddle to so many women in relationships. They would always be dating someone. They would always have the main woman. And then I was like the backup girl, or it was the most bizarre thing that I can't believe I allowed myself to be in those relationships. And one day I just literally woke up and realized that I was done with this cycle repeat. I'm like, every single relationship was the same. And the only common denominator was me. I was like, so what is going on with this scenario? So in the midst of all of this, like Antuan mentioned, therapy was very helpful and useful. And I just literally, between all my self-worthy and my moon ceremonies and all these wonderful things that I was doing for other women, I was like, it's time for me to wake up and realize that I deserve this too, and that I'm deserving and worthy, and I deserve to be with the one who is the one, and that's exactly who showed up.
Oh, I love that. That is beautiful. Thank you, Shannon. And how about you, Erin? Did you deal with any issues of worthiness and deservability? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I did, because, when you've been abused as a child, you often grow up with a lot of survivors, this shame and feeling dirty and, carrying this like guilt and responsibility that somehow, this was your fault and you're not going to be accepted, by the person you're in a relationship with. Because for so many people, this is the first person they've ever been in a relationship that this has happened to. And so it's foreign to them. And so there's there's that fear going into the relationship that, I'm not worthy of this. And I come in, like I said earlier, too much baggage. And if you, are vulnerable and put it all out there, are they going to run away? Are they going to accept me? And so there was always that fear of, how much do you share? And, if I share too much, will that be too overwhelming for the individual? And going back to trust, being able to trust them with that.
I love that. That's actually going to bring me to another question, which is, with your current partner, when did you disclose the past trauma and how did it go? Antuan.
I can't remember exactly when. And I think the reason why I can't remember is that I have shared with enough people in my life what that is, like in the moment that it just feels necessary to say it, I just say it. And I don't really think about when it's said. And I think I had been doing so much speaking around it when we met. We've been together a little over 3 years. And I feel as if around the time we met, I was preparing for my TEDx, my first TEDx, or I had just given my first TEDx. And so it just may have come up naturally in whatever conversation we were having. And I say it as like, this is something that happened. And then however the person receives it, whatever questions they may have after the statement is out there, then we go from there. But I don't necessarily look at it as like dropping this huge bag of bricks, for myself, at least.
Thank you for that. Shannon.
Just want to echo again, Antuan is perfect for speaking first, because it kind of happened naturally. I don't remember exactly when and how it came up. But when it did, my husband mentioned, he said, well, I would like to have a beer with him, because he wants to sit and have a word. He's Australian. That's his way of saying he wants to have a word with him when he meets him, because it is a person in my family. So I just felt even more safe, and I felt like it's nothing that I did wrong. He said it explains a lot of things about me, like especially like the trust issues that I have, and that's pretty much it. Like it brought us to a deeper level, but it was early on in our relationship. We've been together about 3 years, married for almost 2. And so, and we have a daughter. I have a 3-month-old baby with him too. So yeah, that's pretty much, it wasn't like a bombshell. It was just kind of like, this is the thing about me. I think I'm the first person that he's ever been with that had this sort of trauma. And he's very gentle and sweet and kind, even though he's a Viking. He's an angel Viking.
Well, thank you for that, Shannon. Erin, I know your story is a little bit different. How did you tell your current partner about your past trauma?
Well, I had been in so many relationships before where I tried to hold off from telling them, because my fear was if I told too soon, they would start Googling me and find out all this information. I wasn't prepared. All the national TV shows I've been on about, discussing this, start reading my books. But I found myself in relationships before my husband where men would be like, why haven't you accepted my friend request after a month? And having to all of a sudden disclose, well, there's things about me I'm not ready for you to know. And so I ended up finding out that ended up becoming a bigger issue for me, because I had one guy tell me, after I explained why I hadn't accepted his friend request and a little bit about my past, we had gone on several dates, and the next morning he texted me. And it wasn't that he was saying he couldn't handle my past. He told me I was too accomplished for him to date and I would make him look bad. So then I held off after that experience because, I was like, oh, great. This is turning some people off. And so I ended up then, finding my husband, and believe it or not, it was on the very first date. I just, came out and told him, and, shared that I had written some books about my experience. I told him, I've done Oprah and a whole bunch of other interviews, but I asked him, can you please respect me and not go searching, Googling my name, reading my books until I'm ready? And he respected that. He didn't, go there. And I'm actually glad, because I felt by putting it out there right away, I didn't invest all this time in a relationship only for this person to be turned off or run away from it, like the last relationship before him. And so, yes, the very first date, by the end of our coffee date, he knew a whole lot about me.
Well, I love that. And that brings me to my next question is, for the current partners or even past partners, it doesn't have to be the current one that you're in right now, but did they support you in a way that you wanted to be supported? And if they didn't, how would you have wanted your partner to support you after disclosing? And I think this is important for any loved ones that might be listening in, whether it be, and that could be for a romantic partner or even for friends or for loved ones. What kind of support, how did you want people to support you after you disclosed, Antuan?
I can say that I have felt supported by any partner or friendship that knows. And what I also say is, if there have been limitations for their support, it's been limitations that I have set by not reaching out when I am feeling low or that I might need support. I know that that's something that I continue to work on. But in the moments where I have allowed myself to, be it crumble or fall apart, or just say like, I just need someone to be here, those people in my life have been there immediately in any way, whether it's a text, a video face call, they come over and we hang out, I go to their place, we hang out. And so I've just found, and I say this a lot, that if people don't show up, sometimes it's because it's something that we're not allowing them to do. We aren't giving them the opportunity to be the support we need. And once we do, then you find out who in your life is that support for you. And then you find out the people that aren't capable of doing it. And there's no fault of their own. It's just not a space that they can occupy. And that's okay, because you have these people that are ready and willing to occupy the space for you when you need it.
I love that. And it also could be for those people that don't support you well enough, you meaning the royal you, is that they might have their own trauma that they have yet to process. And I just want to give a little shout out. We do have a course on supporting survivors for free on PAVE University that can teach any loved one really how to support and the importance, because research shows that the first person a survivor tells, if they react well, that can greatly impact the survivor's healing process. So thank you for that, Antuan. And Shannon, how about you?
Have to say, I just remember distinctly one friend, very close friend. I call her my LA mom. It had been many years that I didn't disclose to her what happened to me in my past. She was just dealing with me with all my relationships with men that I was having a bad time with. And she was just like, oh my God, like, what am I gonna do with this woman? Like, you could tell. I finally disclosed to her what happened. And she just said, she's like this powerful, amazing minister, she's a sage, basically. She just looked at me and she said, I bow to you. She's like, I love you so much right now. She said, because everything that you've been through, and here you are, look at you in your glory. And the way that she said a few other things that I don't remember, but to have this woman at this caliber just tell me like, wow, I understand you completely now, and you're amazing, and you're beautiful, and you're so strong. So that was the most impressive reaction I've gotten, and it really truly helped me with my healing process. Even though it had been 20 plus years since everything occurred, so it is really good to have that sort of support and to have people around you who love you. Just letting them be full disclosure and vulnerable with them is really quite profound and helpful to the healing process, because I don't look at myself and consider myself healed. I consider myself practicing healing, because sometimes you described the onion peeling earlier. I was like, it's exactly that. Like it's layers. I'm like, ooh, I didn't know that was a triggers. Let me work on that one.
I love that. Thank you so much. That was really beautiful. Thank you, Shannon. And Erin, how about you? What did you want in terms of support?
I wanted someone that wasn't going to, I dated before other relationships where you try to share things and they kind of like change the subject or don't know how to react. And you could tell they get uncomfortable because, this is not a topic they're familiar with. And it's, for a lot of people, something uncomfortable to talk about. And I grew up in a home where the one other male figure in my life, the only other person that I trusted was my dad. But this was something that he couldn't handle. He, as I like to say, swept under the rug and just wanted it to go away and not talk about it. So that was kind of like what I was taught growing up. Let's not talk about this. Let's sweep it under the rug. Let's not deal with it. And suddenly I got such a different experience being in a relationship with my husband, who was always like, you're not going to keep secrets from me. You're not going to do the same behavior you did growing up in your own home where you didn't talk about this. You can tell me anything. I want you to feel safe with me, trust me, And so, he was the first person that I was really able to open up and share things with him about my experiences, because I felt if this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, he needs to know everything. And I knew on the third date I was going to marry him. So I just started putting it out there. He likes to say it was the first date. But and in the past, it's, a couple months into the relationship, I'm trying to get myself out. Never in a million years would you have told me that I would know I'm going to marry someone on the third date. I would have told you you're nuts. I thought it would take 3 years. But sometimes you just, when, like I said, I just felt I knew it was going to be the person I could trust, and felt the safest would be the person that I would spend the rest of my life with.
And welcome all these beautiful children into the world. And Erin is due in just a couple of weeks, so thank you so much for being here. My last question before we open it up for Q&A, and I think this is perfect timing. We all touched on this a little bit. Is like healing is a process, right? So Shannon mentioned, she never, it's like the process of healing. I love that, Shannon. I've never heard it said that way. I thought that was beautiful. So my question for all of you, and we can start with Antuan, is when you get triggered, which we all can find ways that, that we are triggered, what are some ways that you deal with that? And what are maybe some advice that you can give to other people that are listening, if they get triggered in certain situations?
Well, I am continually learning in this current relationship how to deal with that. And for me, I've been very used to internally processing what I'm feeling and trying to find the words to express that. And very recently, something had occurred with me and my partner where I was trying to process what I was feeling to then have a conversation about it, and not realizing how much my energy shifts and how aware people are of my energy shift. And instead of just saying, I'm going through something right now and I'm not sure what it is, and I'm trying to figure out what that is, I said nothing at all. And then I just walked around with this weird ass energy that was affecting both of us. And he wasn't sure how to react or how to support me. And then that just created tension between the two of us. And so it was a big learning process for me. And it's such a big learning process for me because this 3-year plus relationship is the longest one I have had as an adult. And it is also the most open and vulnerable relationship I've had as an adult, even though there is more of that for me to release and to allow within our relationship. I'm still working my way through those boundaries that have been in place for me for so long. And so I just know that even if I don't have all of the words, at the very least, I need to say to him, I'm dealing with something right now. I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure it out. Please give me some patience. So that's what I have been learning for myself right now. And I'm thankful that he allows for that and doesn't purposely make me feel bad, but he's also able to say what he needs to say so I know how he is feeling. And even though it was painful to hear that he was hurting and that I was a source of that hurt, I want him to know those are the things I want you to be able to say to me and that I want to be able to say to you, so that we're not holding these things in and then it just rots and just festers in.
I love that. And for so many survivors, self-advocating for what we need can be very difficult. So practicing that all the time. So Antuan, thank you for that. That was really beautiful. Shannon, how about you?
Yes, to say that that it's a learning curve is, I mean, that's just the facts of this whole situation. Navigating through what I'm feeling has been a challenge for me. But in this relationship, I can say that I can tell him just about anything, and I'm able to verbalize no, this is this, and this is what I'm feeling right now in this moment, and I need for you to hear this. And then he has a tendency, I'm trying not to make this a couples therapy session right now, but he has a tendency to like jog back. Well, you said this last time. And I'm like, we're not talking about last time. We're talking about right now. So I was like, you wanted to deal with last time. You should have talked about last time. So it's definitely a learning curve for me. And they do come up, and it's always surrounding the trust factor. And every single time he's never given me a reason not to trust him. So, but it just shows up for me again because I am a vulnerable little sea dolphin or whatever. I don't even know what you want to call it, but I just feel so vulnerable. Sometimes I feel tough, but other times I'm like, oh my God, I really need help right now. I need, I just, like I act tough on the exterior, but inside I'm like I could be crumbling inside because I'm dealing with the trauma from the past. And I gotta say, I've been very lucky in finding a partner that's sensitive to that. But sometimes he's just like, he said, well, in Australia, this. Like, well, you're not dealing with somebody in Australia right now. And you're also dealing with somebody who has trauma. So I don't know what happened in Australia, but this is what's happening now. And I need to talk to you about it right now. So that's kind of like very specific to my sister and the bloke relationship that I have with this man. But basically always being able to verbalize exactly what it is that I'm feeling and being able to talk to him openly and honestly. He's never had that before. And we also have cultural differences because in my family, that's what, we told people off, but honestly, we kept the trauma secret. It was like the pink elephant in the room where everybody knew what was going on and everybody had drama and traumas going on, but no one wanted to say it's because of this. So just navigate, again, that's why I call it a healing process, and just finding a partner that you can trust and just love on you regardless of what your past is. I think it's been very helpful. I hope that makes sense to a lot of people. I kind of went all over the map on that one. But
Oh, that was great, Shannon. Thank you so much. And again, just reiterating the importance, like you said, of communication. We're talking about communication, vulnerability, trust. And so, Erin, what do you think for you? Like, if you ever get triggered, what's some advice you have, or how do you deal with those situations?
Well, something I often tell other survivors is, therapy is essential, especially when you're in a relationship with somebody and this is all new territory. And they want to support you, but they don't have the tools of, am I going to say the wrong thing? Even my husband has said that. I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing. I want to support you. And but with the therapist, they're the expert. And I like to often tell people in relationships that, bringing the spouse or bringing the partner into the therapy session with you so they can learn the tools on how they can support you, at home when you get triggered, when things happen, because they sometimes feel helpless in how to deal with it. And for so many survivors, especially childhood sexual abuse, it's been ingrained in them to keep this a secret, to not talk about it. And they often bring that into a relationship, keeping it secrecy, keeping it, when you get triggered, not telling your spouse, keeping it to themselves. And so it's really trying to learn how to not keep it that secret anymore when things happen, and involving your spouse so that they can, be a support system. I mean, I remember, one thing that sticks out more than anything is my greatest fear in getting married was I was saving myself for marriage for that one person. So my only experience with intimacy was being raped as a child. So I was petrified to go there. And I opened up and told him that. I said, I want my wedding day to be this most beautiful, wonderful experience like every girl does, but I'm terrified of what's going to happen at the end of the night. And I knew I was marrying the right man when he said to me, I want your wedding day to be as magical as you want it to be. And I know how much you're putting into this, and, everything you want it to be so perfect. He goes, we don't have to end the night doing that. We have the rest of our lives. I know you want those 10 kids, but we have the rest of our lives. I don't want that to be looming over you your entire wedding day. And when he said that, I go, I know I'm marrying the right man. And then it was like this aha moment of, no, I go, I'm not going to let my perpetrators win. They're not going to take that from me on my wedding night. And I didn't let them.
Oh, that is so beautiful. It brought tears to my eyes, Erin. Thank you so, so much. So I know that Erin actually has a hard stop at 45 minutes after the hour. So would love for anybody to drop in any questions into the chat. We have just shy of about 10 minutes for some Q&A from anybody. And I want to thank Gina for your comments that therapy is essential. Or, one thing that she mentioned was trying to talk without having a full meltdown or a panic attack. I know that sometimes can be very difficult. So if anybody has any questions, please drop it into the chat right now. And while you all are doing that, I just wanted to give 3 quick tips that I have found very helpful in manifesting a healthy relationship. Number 1 is be aware of what even a healthy relationship looks like. I didn't really know, I think it was really important. My grandparents had a healthy relationship. My parents were divorced. I really needed to look at what a healthy relationship was. And so researching that was really helpful for me. And in terms of the kind of worthiness is that I really had to learn how to love myself. When I was in therapy, I realized at the core of who I was, and I found this out in my mid-20s, that I did not feel good enough. And that was a pretty hard realization. And so the way that I dealt with that is I started to date myself. I would go to concerts by myself. I needed to learn how to love on myself. And so, I literally just had this love affair with myself. I would, take myself out to dinner, go to concerts. I went camping alone, all the things that I love to do. I really needed to learn how to know myself, my authentic self. And that's why I love this notion of recovery. It's like the notion of recovery is like getting back to your authentic self of who you are, what you love, and what sets your soul on fire. So that's number 2. Number 3 is being very aware of your self-talk. Oftentimes, we don't even realize what we're saying about ourselves to ourselves. And we as human beings are very judgmental characters. And so really taking this with a lens of an investigator. So being very curious, why am I thinking those thoughts? Being aware of these thoughts and not, shaming or blaming myself, but thinking, that's interesting. And then letting those thoughts go without judgment, but replacing them with a positive affirmation. So one of my greatest mentors was Louise Hay, and she talks a lot about mirror work and affirmations. And so before I met my husband, I wrote on a Post-it note and I put them all over my house that I am in a healthy relationship with great communication and dance parties in the kitchen, because that is what I wanted to manifest in my life. And so I put it all over, and we were friends at the time. And so I wound up, falling in love and dating my best friend. And now we have 2 beautiful kids. But I think so much of that was starting with me first, because I think it's very difficult oftentimes to really attract or manifest a healthy relationship when we don't have a healthy relationship with our inner being and with ourselves, if that makes sense. So if anybody has any questions, otherwise would love to give a final word to any of our panelists. Of what advice do you have to other people who might be struggling through this? And what advice do you have to, attract healthy love after trauma? Because we all know that can be difficult. But Antuan, do you want to start? Do you have any advice for anybody who's listening that might be wanting to attract a healthy relationship or a partner, but might not know how to go about doing that?
Well, something that came to mind as you were sharing, as you were speaking, that maybe it will be some advice for people in terms of creating and establishing like a love for yourself. Something that I say to myself at least 3 times a day. And I started by I use it as a part of blessing for my food. Whatever meal I eat, I start by saying, I am love, I am loved. And the reason that I do that is, well, before I was in a relationship and living alone, and especially you could go an entire day and not hear those words spoken to you. So if you aren't speaking them to yourself, no one else will. And if you are the one speaking it to yourself, for me, it's a reminder that I'm always here for me. I am always here for me. And I think when we reassure and confirm and affirm our love for ourselves, it makes it a lot harder for us to accept anything less from anyone else, because we expect so much more for ourselves. So if you're not receiving the love from others, ask yourself, how much love are you offering and giving to yourself on a daily basis, even if it's just saying, I am love, I am loved. You can say it in the shower, you can say it in the bathroom, when you're by yourself, you can think it. I think that is one wonderful exercise to do at least once a day.
That is beautiful and tangible. I love the tangible. And in our PAVE survivor care packages, we have this heart flyer that we encourage people that says, I deserve to love and be loved. So that same thing, kind of just really articulating that out into the world. So Erin, I'm going to kick it to you next because I know you have a hard stop here. So what advice do you have?
Yeah, advice I have for other survivors. I've had so many come to me say, "How did you, find your husband? I don't trust. I feel like I'm going to spend the rest of my life alone." And I tell them that was my greatest fear was I would never get that family I dreamed of. I would never be able to trust. And something that I always, tell other survivors that struggle in relationships is you have to be true to yourself. Have to have the faith that, that's not how the rest of your life is going to be. There is somebody out there that's worthy, that will respect you, that you can trust. And one of the key things is not continuing that secrecy, letting them in and letting them see all of you, and not carrying that shame like you have to keep this to yourself. Because I think that's something, especially when you've been abused as a child, that takes a long time to let go of, is just the shame, the secrecy, because that's what's been drilled in your head. Not talk about it. When the reality is, I tell every survivor, you can't change the past, but you can't change what your perpetrators did to you. But one thing that you can take back is your voice, and not stay quiet about it like they want you to, and to put a face and voice on this and speak out and not carry that shame.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And a part of that also too is us as a community really learning how to elevate and give that grace and space for survivors to speak out and to celebrate their voices. So that's so wonderful. Thank you, Erin, for that. And I know you have a hard stop because you got to pick up the kiddos, but thank you so much. And Shannon, we'd love to hear from you. What are some ways in which you are able to give some advice to other survivors that might be wanting to manifest a healthy relationship in their life?
Well, I could do it by starting off with a really quick story of how I manifested my husband. It was Valentine's Day of 2018. I was at a comedy show and I was doing stand up, and this comedian got up and said, "Look at us, all alone. We're losers. Nobody has a boyfriend or girlfriend." When it was my turn to get up, I was like, "You speak for yourself. 'Cause I got a husband at home waiting for me in bed. He is hot, keeping the bed hot for me and everything." I did not have a man waiting for me at home. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm going home alone." But I changed it to everything. I went home, made myself dinner, got a nice little glass of wine, and I had this card that I got, a Valentine's Day card with two little golden retriever puppies on it. I began to write a love letter to my husband, who did not exist, but I thanked him. I started off by saying, "Thank you for being the one who is the one." And then I started writing down all their different qualities that I love, as if it was current. Like I just did it. And then 1 year later, I gave that card to my then boyfriend. And then he looks like a golden retriever, ironically. He has like red, blondish hair, and he was born a year old, a dog. He's kind of a golden retriever. And he's like, he was reading it, he's like, "This is me." I said, "It is you." So I would advise, and be ready for it. The minute that you're ready to accept the love that you know you deserve, it's gonna show up. It just has to. And I could not believe it. I was like, "Wow, I need to start doing this with my house." Thank you, house, for being $1 million house up in Malibu that I always wanted. So that's what I'm gonna do next. So I just say, continue to just be vulnerable and sweet and self-love. I'm just echoing the words that Antuan and Erin and Angela said. Just once you learn to love yourself, you can't accept anything less than how you are with yourself. That's the minute that I chose that, that's what occurred in my life.
I love that. Oh, this was what an inspiring dialogue and conversation. I knew this would be. I am so grateful for your time today and for all the panelists. I'm going to give one other opportunity for anybody to chime in on the chat. Just drop in a question in the chat if you have anything. Otherwise, we have a comment. Thank you for sharing your stories and tips. Very helpful. Thank you for that, Gina. And Lisa, loved your last comment. So thank you, Shannon, for that. And it is true. I think energy work is really important, and not to get super woohoo, but I know Shannon and I share the woohoo. Is like, I really believe in the law of attraction, that what you kind of believe about yourself and act like what you want, you already have. So a couple of exercises that you all can do, even today on Valentine's Day, is take some time to really go inward. We live in a very loud and busy world. Unplug, sit quiet. Think about what it is that you really want in your life. Close your eyes and feel in your heart what it feels like to have it right now. And the more that we can do that, that it's drawn to us. And I think a lot of that, again, comes from that self-love, that deservingness, that worthiness, and that only can come from inside our own hearts. So I think this conversation was so important for, for all of us to remind ourselves the importance of the self-love, to instill it into the little ones. And that's why I love PAVE's work of getting younger. We're doing a lot of work now more in schools. And I think that that self-love really needs to start at a much younger age, because that's not something I was taught in school. So we are starting to expand. If you want to get involved with PAVE in your own community, we'd love to hear from you. You can learn more about our work at shatteringthesilence.org. And if you were triggered or feeling like you need some help, love, or support, you can always visit PAVE's new resource at survivors.org. So thank you all so much. I love all of you. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Antuan. Thank you, Erin, who left, but we are so grateful. And thank you, panelists, for spending an hour of your Valentine's Day here with us. We'd love to hear from you and on social media at PAVE Info. Have a beautiful day. Anybody else have anything closing to say?
I'll just tell everyone, you are love and you are loved. You are love and you are loved.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. Have a beautiful Valentine's Day. And I love what Antuan said. I love that, Antuan. I'm going to use that. And that's something we can teach our kids and our younger generation, to just tell themselves that you are love and you are loved, and just to spread love. I think right now, with the way the world is, we need more love and kindness. So thank you. Thank you, Courtney. She says, thank you for the positivity today. So go out there, have a beautiful day, and let's spread some love and light. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. I love all of you. Thank you.